So let's look at the core components of a cold call infrastructure, and I want to focus in on this first one, which is data. So when it comes to data, there's a lot of large databases out there. There's ZoomInfo is probably the best known. It's on a more expensive end than most, but it's also one of the best when it comes to like actual mobile data, direct data, the phone data. The difference between these data providers usually comes down to phone or not. The expensive ones are usually better at phone. Your lower level ones usually have email and LinkedIn, which is almost everybody has to some extent. So we'll start with the large data provider. So assuming, and I'm just going to use ZoomInfo as an example, you can't just buy ZoomInfo and you're good, right? Some percentage we see in the 10 to 20% range, but it does vary a lot. Is just off. Job titles are off. They're not at that company any longer. You're pulling people that aren't of interest. So you have job titles and staying up to date issues. Then you have the quality of the data issues. So, for example, um, uh, mobile works much better from a calling perspective than directs does or corporate lines. Across almost all of our clients, and we do thousands of cold calls, every single week. You get better results calling mobiles than you do directs. Well, who has the best mobile data? Well, you take someone like ZoomInfo. Let's say they have 40 to 50% of the data on mobiles on a specific list you want. Well, where are you going next to get the rest of the mobiles? With our enhancements, what we find is when you waterfall data, which means you go to one provider and then you go to the next provider, and then you go to the next provider and go to the next provider, and you're just trying to move that from 40 to 50% up to 70, 80, 90%. So that's a big deal when only half your list has mobiles. When you can add another 20 to 30, 40%, it's a much better spot. And then when you have the data, if you're going to be calling, it's ideal to call people who pick up the phone. So one of the things that we do is we will do analysis and dial through phone numbers before they get to our reps. So we will dial and say, look, this person picks up the phone from a number that they don't know. And so the likelihood of calling them back and then picking up again is much higher than somebody who doesn't pick up the phone from numbers that they don't know. And what that does is takes your conversion rates up. So rather than 5% of the people you call pick up the phone, now you're talking about 15, 20, 25%. And now that hour that you're dialing, you're having 20 conversations rather than 3 or 4. So that's a big deal. The quality of the data is absolutely kind of number one. Without quality data, you're just wasting time. And then there are little things that you can do, waterfalling, making sure those people are still there on LinkedIn, calling through lists to ensure that the people you're calling are actually going to pick up the phone that will increase that number even further.